Marcus Chin sat in the sterile waiting room of Hartwell Industries, his worn briefcase resting on trembling knees. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he could see the city sprawling below, full of opportunities that always seemed just out of reach. His daughter's voice echoed in his mind from that morning. "Good luck, Daddy. I know you'll get it this time." At 7 years old, Emma believed in him with a faith that terrified him. What she didn't know was that this was his last interview, his final chance before the eviction notice became reality. The weight of single parenthood pressed down on his shoulders like an invisible mountain. And today that mountain felt ready to crush him completely. The past 18 months had been a blur of rejection letters, missed opportunities, and sleepless nights. After his wife Sarah passed away from cancer, Marcus had become both mother and father to Emma, juggling her grief and his own while trying to keep their small apartment and put food on the table. His previous job as a mid-level marketing manager had vanished during company downsizing, and re-entering the workforce had proven nearly impossible. Every interviewer saw the gaps in his resume, the desperation in his eyes, and moved on to younger, less complicated candidates. But today felt different. Hartwell Industries needed a community outreach coordinator, a position that seemed crafted for his skills and experience. He'd prepared for 2 weeks, rehearsing answers while Emma slept, researching the company until his eyes burned. This had to work. It simply had to. Marcus Chen, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s, appeared, clipboard in hand. "I'm Patricia Hartwell. Please follow me." Marcus stood, straightening his second-hand suit jacket. Patricia Hartwell, not just an interviewer, but the CEO herself. His heart hammered as he followed her down a corridor lined with photos of community initiatives, charitable events, and smiling employees. Maybe this company really was different. The interview started well enough. Marcus spoke confidently about his vision for community engagement, his ideas for bridging corporate responsibility with local needs. Patricia listened intently, nodding occasionally, her expression unreadable. Then came the question that always arrived, the one he'd learned to dread. "I see a significant gap in your employment history. Can you explain that?" Marcus took a breath. "My wife passed away from cancer 18 months ago. I'm raising our 7-year-old daughter alone, and I took time to ensure she had the stability and support she needed during that transition." Patricia's expression softened slightly, but she pressed on. "And child care arrangements. This position requires occasional evening events and weekend commitments. I have a neighbor who helps when needed," Marcus said, which was technically true, though Mrs. Rodriguez was elderly and couldn't always be relied upon. "I'm fully committed to this role." "I apologize, but I need to check this," he said, pulling out his phone. 7 missed calls. His hand shook as he read the text from Emma's teacher. Emma fell during recess. Possible broken arm. Need parent at ER immediately. The room tilted. Marcus stood abruptly, chair scraping against polished floor. "I'm so sorry. My daughter's been taken to the emergency room. I have to go." Patricia stood as well, her professional mask firmly in place. "I understand. We'll be in touch." But Marcus barely heard her. He was already moving toward the door, his mind racing through logistics he couldn't afford. The hospital, the medical bills. Missing this interview meant losing this job, which meant losing the apartment, which meant failing Emma completely. But none of that mattered because Emma needed him, and she would always come first, even if it cost him everything. He punched the elevator button repeatedly, cursing its slowness. When the doors finally opened, he rushed inside. And that's when he heard footsteps running behind him. "Wait, Mr. Chen, please wait." Marcus turned to see Patricia Hartwell hurrying down the hallway. Slightly breathless, her professional composure cracked. She held out his briefcase, which he'd abandoned in his panic. "You forgot this," she said, pressing it into his hands. Then she surprised him completely. "Which hospital?" "St. Mary's." "But I don't. My car is faster than whatever you're planning." "Come on." Before Marcus could process what was happening, Patricia was striding toward the executive elevator, gesturing for him to follow. Minutes later, they were in her silver Mercedes, weaving through downtown traffic with surprising urgency. "You don't have to do this," Marcus said, gripping the door handle as Patricia expertly changed lanes. "I've already blown the interview." "You didn't blow anything," Patricia replied, her eyes fixed on the road. "You showed me exactly who you are. Now tell me about Emma." And somehow in that car racing toward the hospital, Marcus found himself talking about Sarah's last months. About Emma's nightmares and her brave face, about the juggling act of being everything to a child who'd already lost so much. Patricia listened without judgment, occasionally nodding, her jaw set with determination. They reached St. Mary's in record time. Patricia pulled up to the emergency entrance. "Go. I'll park and find you." Marcus ran into the ER, his heart pounding. At the desk, he gasped out Emma's name, and a nurse directed him to Bay 7. Behind the curtain, he found his daughter sitting on an examination table. Her left arm splinted, tear tracks on her cheeks. The moment she saw him, her brave facade crumbled. "Daddy." He wrapped her in his arms, careful of her injury, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." "You're so brave." The doctor confirmed a fracture requiring a cast. As she explained treatment plans and follow-up appointments, Marcus felt the familiar panic rising. How would he pay for this? But then, Patricia Hartwell appeared in the doorway, and Emma's eyes widened. "Is that a princess?" Emma whispered, staring at Patricia's elegant business attire. Patricia smiled, a genuine warmth transforming her face. She approached the bed slowly. "Hi, Emma. I'm Patricia, a friend of your dad's. That's quite an adventure you had today." For the next hour, while doctors set Emma's arm and applied a bright purple cast at her request, Patricia stayed. She told Emma stories about breaking her own arm as a child, made her laugh with silly jokes, and somehow made the sterile ER feel less frightening. Marcus watched in amazement as the CEO, who should have been back in her office conducting interviews, sat on a hospital chair holding his daughter's good hand. When the paperwork came, Patricia quietly intercepted it. "The company has an excellent health insurance policy," she told Marcus. "Consider this part of your benefits package." "But I don't have the job," Marcus protested. Patricia met his eyes steadily. "Yes, you do. If you still want it." Marcus couldn't speak. Emma, however, had no such problem. "Daddy, you got the job." "I knew you would." Later, after Emma had fallen asleep in the car on the way home, hopped up on pain medication and exhaustion. Patricia helped Marcus carry her upstairs to their modest apartment. She didn't comment on the peeling wallpaper or the second-hand furniture. She simply helped Marcus tuck Emma into bed, her movements gentle and practiced. In the small kitchen, Patricia wrote down information for him, her business card, HR contact details, and start date. Then she paused, her professional mask slipping away entirely. 12 years ago, I was you, she said quietly. Single mother drowning in medical bills, terrified I'd lose everything. Someone gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one on paper. They looked past the resume and saw the person. She met his eyes. You ran out of that interview without hesitation because your daughter needed you. That told me everything I needed to know about your character, your priorities, and your values. Those are things I can't teach. The rest is just details. Marcus' eyes burned with tears he'd held back for too long. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. Actually, I do. Patricia smiled. Welcome to Hartwell Industries, Marcus. We're lucky to have you. After she left, Marcus sat in Emma's doorway, watching his daughter sleep peacefully despite her purple cast. For the first time in 18 months, he felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest. Hope. Not the desperate grasping kind he'd been clinging to, but something solid and real. He thought about how close he'd come to losing everything. How one emergency could have toppled his carefully balanced house of cards. But instead, he'd found something unexpected. Not just a job, but a reminder that humanity still existed in corporate boardrooms. That kindness could come from the most unlikely places, and that sometimes being a good father was the best qualification of all. The next morning, Emma woke up asking to call Patricia to thank her. As Marcus dialed the number, his daughter bouncing excitedly beside him, he realized that this story wasn't really about him at all. It was about the ripple effects of compassion, about how one person's choice to see beyond the surface could change everything. Patricia had run after him, not because she needed to fill a position, but because she remembered what it felt like to be drowning and desperate. And now Marcus would carry that forward. He would work hard, not just for his paycheck, but to honor the faith she'd shown in him. And someday, when he had the power to help someone else, he would remember this moment and pay it forward. As Emma chatted happily on the phone, showing Patricia her purple cast through video call. Marcus looked out his window at the city below. It was the same view as yesterday, but somehow everything looked different. The opportunities didn't seem quite so far out of reach anymore. The mountain on his shoulders had lifted, replaced by something lighter, something that felt suspiciously like a future. Sometimes the universe puts people in your path exactly when you need them. Sometimes humanity shows up in a CEO who runs after you, who drives you to the hospital, who sees your heart before your resume, and sometimes the worst day of your life becomes the doorway to something better than you ever imagined possible. Marcus Chen had walked away from that interview thinking he'd lost everything. Instead, he'd found something far more valuable. Proof that goodness still existed in the world, that people still cared, and that a single act of kindness could change the trajectory of two lives forever.